What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been an interesting 2023 so far. We started this new year with some bad news and then some better news right after that. So my year was a little wishy-washy for the first couple of weeks, but we're back on track. Life's going good. All you guys that reached out because the whole job situation before, I appreciate it. Your kind words and stories, and you know, a couple of you guys even offered me a job. That was kind of funny. I appreciate y'all. You guys are the best. Tonight we're gonna get back into some stuff on the laptop. A lot of you guys have reached out to me over the last couple of months and had a ton of different questions on how to set up certain things in Ecmlink. I figured, you know what, we might as well go back and revisit that. We're gonna sit down at the laptop. We're gonna go over some of the more frequently asked questions that you guys have been hitting me with over the last couple of months, and hopefully this helps you sit at home on your couch, figure out your data logs, figure out your tuning situation, and set your page up so you can data log correctly. So this is where I'm at. I'll zoom you guys in nice and tight, and I'll give you a good explanation for everything that I've been asked over the last couple of weeks. Let's get into it. We are down here looking at the laptop. Hopefully you guys can see the screen okay. First question I keep getting asked is, what do you do if you go into Ecmlink and you try to add a wideband and your wideband is not listed down in your Ecmlink ECU config live settings? What you're gonna do is add it as a user-defined linear wideband, which you can see down here. Mine is listed as an AEM wideband, and when you put these values in, there's a couple of things you're gonna have to look for. If you right-click on AEM wideband or user-defined linear wideband, you'll be met with this window right here. When you go to preferences, you right-click and click preferences. You can change the name of what it's displayed. You're also gonna have to do this all the way down in ECU inputs and ECU live settings. And right here on the right-hand side, when you define it, you're gonna see linear wideband right here, and you're gonna wanna go in and there'll be a data sheet. So this one is for my AEM Series X wideband, and this is some of the voltage information that I got out of the pack. It doesn't give you a perfect 14.7 reading out of the box. It tells you something that's a little different, so you have to kind of guesstimate your voltage. You're gonna wanna put your minimum volts in, which are 0.00 all the way up to 5.00 volts right here. You're gonna put the lowest reading that it says on that chart and the highest reading it says on that chart for volts. Minimum lambda means the lowest value that it can read. The sensors, some sensors can read really low, some can only read to a certain percentage of lambda. So you find the minimum lambda listed in that chart, add it, find the max lambda, add it, then your Stoich ratio is 14.7 for gasoline. So you're gonna wanna put 14.7 here. On the left-hand side, you can rename it. I renamed mine AEM wideband. I could put it Series X wideband, whatever I want. Also, the scaling, I changed the scaling on the left-hand side, I believe. I think factory, no, I think this is factory from Ecmlink. 8.8 and 20.6 is what it gives you, but this is the graph scaling. So I could change this. If you look right here on my log, my wideband is one of these purple lines right here, and I have it pretty closely mimicking my air-fuel ratio estimate down below, and that's kind of what you want. You want the min and max on the final overrides to be the same as the final overrides in your air-fuel ratio estimate. So what I'm going to do is close this out. You can see we have 8.8 and 20.6 our min and max. Then we go down to our air-fuel ratio estimate, we right-click, hit preferences, and we should have 8.8 and 20.6 again. So ideally, when you're dialing your car in, your wideband and your air-fuel ratio estimates will overlap. And I can show you that by getting rid of the wideband factor here and the boost, and you can see these are pretty close. They're interpolating between one another. That's what you want. That's what a good tune looks like at idle. So we're idling right now in this view of this diagram, and that's one of the big things a lot of you guys, for some reason, misunderstood. I probably explained it wrong, but anyways, that's number one. If you're using a different wideband, there's presets. You can go through the presets in the ECU config section in ECU Live and go down to the ECU inputs tab. At the top, there's that graph. You can change it all there. We're gonna keep moving on. So if you wanna change the way your display screen looks, aside from these values down below, if you don't like having a smaller graph screen where these lines are and you don't want to have so much data showing, you can change the way your graph is set up by going up into view in the top left corner here, clicking on that, and then there is a graph preferences setup. Now this allows you to change your background color. So if you don't like the black background and you want to make it white, you can hit that, hit OK, and apply, and it's going to change our background to white. As you can see, kind of blinding, kind of bright. I like to leave mine at black, but you can change it to whatever color that you want. We can go down here. If you have 4 legend columns right here, you can move this from 4 to 6, and you can can have 6 different bars of information here, different data points that you can read, and you can apply that, and it's going to change everything around. I'm not going to do that. I like to leave 4 as mine, so we're going to leave 4. We're going to hit OK, but if you do 6, you'll have just 6 individual columns right here, and then you can fit more information in here. I feel like 4 is more than enough, and I have pretty much everything that I'd ever be interested in sitting right here on my data log screen. If your temperatures are displayed in Celsius instead of Fahrenheit, you can change from Fahrenheit for your coolant temp to Celsius by going to Edit in the top left, hitting App Preferences, and then you can go under, there's General, Units, File Names, Ports, Look and Feel. So we go under Units right here. We can change our airflow mass from grams up to pounds. We can change our temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, our air pressure from PSI to PSIA, to kilograms per centimeter squared, and to bar. We can also come down to our fluid pressure and do the same. kPa is added in there. Our distance in miles or kilometers. We can go down to injector size in cc's a minute to pounds an hour. And we can also change our air-fuel ratio mixture to lambda. So it depends on what you guys are comfortable with. You can also change from metric to imperial, and it'll give you presets of all these. There's a couple other changes we can make right here. We can change our show devices info tabs on startup, show background status in the background bar, and our toolbar. I leave all 3 of these checked. That shows me the vehicle in the top left column as I connect, and it shows me all the PAIDs that it's connecting to when I'm connecting through the USB. We go over here to file names. This is one. You can adjust the base directory of where your files are saved. So if you guys are making data logs for the first time but you can't find them, you're searching through your PC and you just can't figure out where the heck the data logs keep going, and it's troublesome search. You don't know, is it under the PC C drive, under users, under your name, under your account, under the PC by itself? You have to, give app permission to get into it or something. If you're having an issue, just come in here and click on browse, and you can pick a file. You can name a file, add a new folder, wherever you want to have it. I like to keep mine on the desktop. That way they're easy to get to, and I just named it data logs. As you can see here, it's users, Ecmlink/data logs. I just put a page in there, or a folder in there rather, that saves all my data logs, and I know where they're going to go. So if, say, one of you guys sends me an email, I download the log from the email of your car, and I'm going to look at it, it's going to be under my downloads page where it pulls its info from. If I want to look at one of my data logs and I click on, Ecmlink open, it's going to open up my downloads folder. Well, that's not where I keep all my data logs. I keep them on my desktop just to keep it simple. You can also rename them. You can change the year, month, day, all that stuff. You can change all this stuff. Make it whatever you want to make it, and whatever file you want to make it that's comfortable for you. Ports is another thing that you can do. Some guys connect Ecmlink through a USB cable on the side of their laptop. Some guys don't have that. Some guys have to use an adapter, or if you're using like a tablet in your car, you're gonna have like a micro USB adapter and all that. This just shows you all the ports that you're using. I use ComPort ID USB because I plug into my USB on my laptop. And the last thing is the look and feel. You can change this to a bunch of different presets. It gives you a description down here below, like a quick visual of what it's gonna look like. On the left-hand side is the look and feel, and you can see this is what I think Nimbus is what comes for everybody that uses a MacBook or Apple PC of any type. Then there's a bunch of different settings that you can go through, and it shows you different colors, different animations, different text, fonts, all that fun stuff, all built into here. Windows Classic. I leave mine at Plastic or Plastic 3D and just send it. You also click over here on the right hand side. You can pick the different colors that they have. There's what is this one called? Dark Star, changes everything dark. You can hit apply and you'll see everything goes dark. Not a big fan of that. It looks a little too dark for me. I like to have all my stuff a little lighter. That way when I'm driving I can see what I'm doing. But you can customize all that stuff. Your values, you can customize the look and feel of the app, all that fun stuff. And that's just one of the things that you can do in the customization. We're going to move on to changing all these things, all these colors for all these different parameters that we're logging. Like the knock is red, coolant temp I have is orange displayed, timing is purple, boost is blue, combined fuel trim. The main stuff that I'm paying attention to all the time, I have a specific color set to it. So if I'm driving and tuning at the same time, I don't have a passenger that knows how to run this stuff. I'm doing it all myself. So if I'm driving down the road and I got my laptop in the passenger seat, I want to be able to look over to my right on my passenger seat and see my laptop and quickly identify what I'm looking at. So I like to have the text size a little bit bigger on knock, because that's like the most important one in my opinion, is seeing your knock. It's not your boost, it's your knock. If you have a ton of boost and you have a ton of knock, you have a problem. If you're not paying attention to it, you're gonna melt a piston, blow up your motor, pop a head gasket, something bad's gonna happen. So I like to pay attention to knock first and foremost. After that, when I'm dialing stuff in, I like to be able to see my combined fuel trim, especially if you're on speed density cars. If you're dialing in a map, you can use your wideband factor, which is this green line that's gonna pop up here, and you can make adjustments based on that. Like right here is 2.9%, a positive number says that you are running 2.9% lean and the ECU is adding 2.9% of fuel at this particular moment in my graph. But I pay attention to combined fuel trim on speed density because wideband factor doesn't really do much for you in speed density. If you're running a MAF, you want to pay attention to it. If you're SD, follow combined fuel trim, because right now you can see there are two different data points. Wideband factor is telling me to add almost 3% of fuel, and combined fuel trim is saying to take away 2%. So follow your combined fuel trim if you're running a speed density system on your car right now, and if not, if you're on a factory MAF or 1G, 2G, Evo, even the GM ones, follow your wideband factor and combined fuel trim data. But with the speed density, wideband factor doesn't really matter anymore. It's all about the fuel trims. All right, this next one is for you speed density guys. If you're on speed density, get your car started, get it warmed up, and make your adjustments once everything is warmed up. You're also going to want to make sure that all your accessories are turned off. You don't want your AC running while you're trying to dial in your idle. You don't want to have your headlights and high beams on. You don't want to have your sound system cranking in the car. Shut all the accessories off. It's going to help you in the long run, and you'll be able to dial some stuff in a lot closer. You're going to be paying attention to your combined fuel trim on speed density a lot more, along with your VE figure, which is down here in the bottom right. Basically, the 0.600 right now is going to be pertaining to our speed density table, and if I hit track data log right here, it should be at 60. So you're just moving the decimal point over. Looks like 2 spots. If you see a 0.600, that means the 60 is what we should be aiming for in that specific cell in our data log right now. If you start driving the car and you see 0.9330, you're going to be at a 93. You just move the decimal place over 2 points, and that gives you your reading in your graph. Another thing is track data log is your best friend when you're trying to dial all this stuff in. And if you're having any trouble once you get the stuff set up, if you go out for a light cruise and your car is like sputtering and you feel like your speed density table is really off, there's a built-in wizard for combined fuel trims on MAF. There's one built-in for speed density, and there's like a pseudo speed density setup that runs off your MAF and speed density sensors, and you can have a switch point enabled. We're not going to talk about that too much today, but all you got to do is right click on your cruising data log where you stay at a boost and click on SD VE adjust SD ratio. Then you hit continue. It's going to automatically make changes in your speed density table and try to dial your tune in just a little bit more. And you can see any cell that is bold, like this 96.5, 98, 96, 94.5, 92, all these are suggestions from Ecmlink saying, hey, your tune looked like it was off right here. This is the adjustment we think should be there, and it's going to make those changes for you. You can run that tool a bunch of times until you get your tables dialed in, and you want to have a nice, good, smooth transition between all these cell points. You don't want to have some crazy number like right here we have a 73. We wouldn't want to have like a 95 right below it. We want to have a 75, 76, 77, 78, all the way up, nice and linear. Another thing, your idle cells are usually right up here. 1,000 RPMs, 3.7 load. These cells I see the most in idle. I have these up to 5.5 at 1,000 RPMs. These are all the idle cells that I see for the most part in most of your guys' cars, mine included. I start all of them at the same number, and as it warms up, I might change these bottom 3. This 60, 60, 60. It's only 0.5 off the difference here. These others are 59.5. As you drive, the load increases. You end up going through the cells and working your way into boost. You're going to get down here in the hundreds. This scale should never go up past 100%. Like, I have some room I have to work on. I'm at 101.5 on some of these spots. Most of the time that means that your speed density table is out of whack, or your fuel pressure is not correct, or even your injector size is not correct, which in here we're running 750cc injectors at 43.5 psi, and we're aiming for a 14.7 ratio, so something might be wrong, a little bit off. I might want to change my global fuel and adjust that, or double check my fuel pressure, make sure my vacuum line's working to my fuel pressure regulator, all that fun stuff. But most of the time you want to pay attention to that stuff. If you're going to 115 on your speed density table when you're in wide open throttle, there's probably something that's a little off, not quite calibrated, or some adjustment you need to make. Verify your fuel pressure. Like I said before, make sure your injectors are correctly scaled and the information that you have inserted into Ecmlink is accurate to what you're running. Let's move on to the next one. This one also has to do with some speed density stuff. I get a lot of emails and a lot of questions from you guys asking whether or not your boost is set up correctly because you have a GM3 or a GM 3.3 bar map sensor hooked up, and you'll see a vacuum right now where it says boost. I have 18.7, and then my boost estimate says 22.4, and a lot of you guys say, hey, is this sensor not working correctly? Is there a problem with it? Or hey, I set my manual boost controller to 18 pounds, but Boost S says 13 and my actual map sensor says 18 psi. What's the deal? If you're running speed density, most of the time Boost S doesn't work anymore. It runs off an airflow reading that you get from your MAF, and it's only accurate, I believe, at like 5 to 5,500 RPMs. You might get a close accurate figure in there, but pay attention to your actual map sensor. Make sure you're not over boosting. If you guys think you are, Boost S is not going to lead you in the right direction. It's going to tell you some crazy number unless, like I said, you're at like 5 or 5,500 RPMs. So your sensor could be working perfectly fine, but the boost estimate is literally just an estimate based on airflow. So if you're not using a MAF sensor anymore and you're using a pressure sensor, you might not get the most accurate reading out of that. So don't try to match these up perfectly. If you're on speed density, it's just not going to happen. So this one I get all the time from you guys, and it's a pretty normal question, and I would be concerned too, but it's about your AFR. If you're running crappy pump gas, if all you have in your area is 87 octane regular gas, and that's all you can get, or maybe 90 or 91 is the highest. We have 93 here in New York State. We don't have any E85 pumps where I'm at, but if you're just running pump gas, you hear a tuner or you read something about a tuner saying 11.0 or 11.5 is your target AFR for making power and making big power and boost, stay away from that. Pump gas is not that great, and it detonates a lot. You get a ton of knock. Your knock figure is going to kill your horsepower. If you're getting a bunch of knock, it's going to pull a bunch of timing, and your car is going to suffer. Then you also risk damaging stuff. So change your target down. If you go into your direct access table down here at the bottom, and you look at your open loop table, you shouldn't be targeting anything lower than 10.5, 10.6. If you're running 87 octane gas, you can get down into the 9s on the stock map, I believe. You just keep an eye out on that. You don't want to tune your car on 87 octane to an 11.0 AFR. You don't want your wideband reading 11.0. It's going to end up knocking, or it's going to take so much power out, and you're going to be running so little boost, it's just going to be a pain to drive. If you only run pump 93, you can use this table like I have right here. This is all I ever put in the car, and I can verify that the gas has always been good for the most part. And that brings me to another point. If you're running a table like this in your open loop max, and you know you're only going to put 93 octane gas in it, one of the parameters you want to add is octane. Down here in the bottom left, you can see octane is at 255. That means I'm running 93 octane gas in the car, and somehow I haven't quite figured out this magic to this program, but the ECU can figure out that you're running that 93 octane gas. It gives you a 255 number next to the octane rating, and then you're all set and all safe to run 11.0s for the most part. But I mean, high boost cars, they still can't do it, and a lot of cars have trouble getting knock under control and timing under control when they run pump gas. If you're running like a better fuel like ethanol or E85 or race gas or something, obviously you can push it a lot further, but this is my daily driver, so I don't ever go past 10.9 and 11.0s when I'm in boost. I try to stay away from, super rich. I don't want to be running 10.0 or anything crazy like that on 93. It's usually all right. I don't see crazy knock numbers, but it's a case-by-case thing, so pay attention to that knock. You don't ever want to have so much knock that it's pulling 8, 10, 12 degrees of timing and you blow your head gasket out. It's bad. Stay away from knock. But let's move on to the next one. All right, this one has to do with scaling. There's a couple of tricks you can do in here in these data logs to make it so that your graphs are a little bit more accurate looking. Boost is the main one. You want to right click on boost down here and then click boost preferences, and going in here and just simply Google your altitude at where you live and type that altitude in right here, and that's going to help you give a more accurate representation to your map sensor that you're data logging. So if you're 1,000 feet above sea level, the air pressure may be a little bit lighter because you're up in the air a little bit further. So if you're running 15 pounds, it may only be like 12 pounds. It's just based on your height, your elevation. So you want to make sure that you go in here, you plug in the correct numbers so that your map is calibrated correctly, and then you can change the scaling right here. Like my car, I never have seen over 26 pounds on it. It's a stock car, and I don't do that often. I've hit it a couple of times with spikes, but I never go up past 26 psi on pump gas with stock rods and the miles that it has on it. But you can set your scaling up to fit what you run. So your minimum in vacuum would be what your vacuum gauge is at full idle. already warmed up. You're just going to set that number in, what you see on your gauge, and then your maximum boost. I usually go a few pounds over. Like right now I'm set at 23 pounds. I set my max at 30. That way my graph is nice and in the middle of this page. It doesn't look like a random outlier number, and it doesn't look crazy. So I leave that where it's at. And if I turn it on, I can see my boost figure down here on the bottom. When I get into it, it climbs up, and I can see when it drops back off. That way it's not outside of this window here, and the resolution on that looks good in my data logs. I can follow along really nicely with it. So you can change that also with a couple other things, like your wideband has the same grid on it. Like I showed you earlier, your minimum lambda, if your car only ever runs to 10.5 AFR, you could change the minimum down to 10.5. If your max AFR is, 16.0 when you let off the gas randomly, maybe put a 16.0 there. It's just going to change and adjust the graphs here. There's another link that I found online that I wanted to share with you guys. This is dsmtuners.com/threads/ecmlink-tips-n-tricks-display-optimization.377.620/. I will put that in the description. And this guy gives you a great breakout of how you can set up Ecmlink and additional sensors that you may not have to give you reference lines, so you can follow a dotted line and see if your tune is following that same line that you've already dialed into a calibrated sensor. Everything is all good, but when you see it stray away from that, you know something's wrong or something's out of whack. This guy gives you some good information on going full scale, your air fuel ratios, let's see, using reference grids. What else do we got? He's got some good information here. You can see all his dotted lines right here are the baseline, and you can kind of get information based off that dotted line, whether or not a sensor's going above or below, rich, lean, all that fun stuff. I'll put him down in the description. There he is, Callan, DSM Wiseman, C-A-L-A-N. Looks like he's got a white 1G in here. But yeah, this guy, he's got some great information posted on here. Definitely reference this. And he gives you a bunch of different parameters that you can use as reference points if you're trying to log certain things, so you can make sure that everything stays on the same plane. And that uses these dotted lines as reference points. If you see for some reason one of your sensors goes way up or way below this dotted line, which is your baseline, you know you have a problem. This one is a pretty serious one when it comes to getting your idle set up correctly. The first thing that you want to do is go into your injector data under fuel. You're going to click on the fuel tab under Ecmlink Live, and you're going to figure out what injectors you're running. If you're running 450s, then you're going to leave this alone as stock. Your global should be set at 0 on the bottom left. Your dead time should be at 0. And there should be no changes if you're at 450cc stock injectors on a 2G, 7-bolt, 4G, 6.3. If you're going to put some different ones in, some 550s, some Evos, whatever you got. If you got 1000cc injectors, 750s, 2100s, whatever you got to come in here and click calculate. This little tool right here will bring up this window. It's called Global Fuel Adjustment. You can type in your actual injector size. So we have 750s. We're aiming for a 14.7 AFR. That's what it is for your pump gas. And we're going to type our base fuel pressure in here, which is 43.5 PSI. That's what my car is set up to on my AFPR. I'm running 750cc injectors. We're going to click calculate, and that's going to give us minus 40.6. We're going to click use, and it's going to move that information down here in the bottom left to the global fuel. It'll say 40.6%. And then the dead time for my injectors is actually 3:30, I think it was. And I adjusted it a little bit, and I'll explain why in just a second. So click use once you type in your injector size, your base fuel pressure, your storage ratio, which is 14.7 for pump gas. Get this information saved down below. So this is if you're swapping your injectors out right now. Make sure you have this info. And if you buy generic injectors, it's really, really tough. I've dealt with a lot of you guys where you bought cheap knockoff injectors, and I can run those. They're not that expensive. The FICs were $250 or $350. I bought these for $125 off Craigslist or AliExpress, whatever it is. Those injectors are such a pain. Do not waste money on fuel components. Those things are the difference between, a fuel injector breaking, getting stuck shut, getting stuck open, blowing up a motor. You don't want to deal with that. Just get some good injectors. Get some Deechworks or some FICs or Injector Clinic, whatever you got. Buy something that's from a reputable dealer. Extreme PSI has a bunch of them on there. You can always find them on the classifieds page. If somebody's selling some bunk generics, stay away from them. Stay away from the eBay ones. They're a pain. But I run with FIC. Fuel Injector Clinic seems to have pretty accurate data, and I've never really had any trouble finding information on them either. There's a couple of places you can look. You can go to the Ecmlink base injector data site. It's just an Ecmlink wiki page that has all the base injector data for like Denso injectors, Bosch injectors, Fuel Injector Clinic, a bunch of them, different sizes, different flow rates. You can get some information from there. You type it in right here. You click use, then you click save to ECU. That should get you set up to the point where you should be able to start your car. Also, combined with that is under MAF comp. You're going to want to make sure you have the correct MAF system settings enabled. So I'm running speed density. A lot of you guys I see have checked this disable MAF compensation with speed density operation checkbox here. This is only for speed density. If you have this clicked, you have to be on speed density. If not, leave that unchecked. I see a lot of you MAF guys check that box for some reason, probably because it's named what it's named, but there's also one more down here in the miscellaneous tab, I believe. Yep, disable airflow smoothing with speed density operation. If you have a stock MAF sensor or a GM MAF sensor, don't check this box. This is only for speed density. So leave that one unchecked on MAF. Under MAF comp, leave disable MAF compensation off. Don't check those boxes. If we are running speed density here, we don't have to mess with anything else after this page is set. We can save it, and we should be able to probably start our car. This base speed density table that's right here, usually, this is not the base one, I've messed with this one, but the base one usually will get your car to start, and then you can start dialing things in from there using your combined fuel trim data. So if your combined fuel trim numbers show, you know, minus 2.7%, if we go back into our speed density table and we click track data log, it's going to show right here at 60 we're 2.7% rich, so I could lower this number right here down a little bit. And like I told you, at idle, these are the cells you're going to see for your idle. These are the ones you're going to want to work on. These numbers may not work for you, 59.5 and 60. You might have to mess with them a little bit. So here we are at ecmtuning.com/wiki/v3configs. This right here will give you a bunch of good tables that you can start with. I like to use the stock 2G tables right here. You just download these. Once they download, you open the file up. It'll open up Ecmlink, open up one of your data logs or connect to your car, and you can right click on the fuel table for minimum and maximum octane, and then you can also copy the timing minimum and maximum octane tables over and save those. I use the Evo 8 2003 stock.eda file. It says bone stock 2003 Evo 8, my own car. That's the one I use to start my tunes with and go through and change things out. I adjust it accordingly, but it probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you guys copy these tables over, don't go out and just floor it in your car. You're going to have to do some dialing in, and don't get frustrated by that. You're going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to learn what needs to be modified, you know, calibrate your MAF correctly, change your fueling if you have to change it, and, you know, a couple of spots you might have to take a degree or two of timing out. So if you're uncomfortable with that, don't even attempt it. Just leave your regular table in there and your tune that you currently have. As long as it's not hurting anything and it's not making a bunch of knock, you don't have to do this. But I like to start from the Evo 8 tables personally. I never use the Mod 1 table or the GSR Rally Art table. It's just a lot of timing, a lot more leniency on the fuel side. Number one is make sure that you guys don't change a lot of stuff in these fuel tables in Ecmlink Live. These sliders right here pertain to the same information that you'll find in the open loop max table and min table. If you change these scales on this slider over here, if you move this slider up right here for the 2000 RPM area, it's going to change everything in this entire column right here, and you don't want to do that. It's just a pain. I mean, if you have to make a fuel adjustment on the fly, you can, but I try to stay away from doing any of that. I see a lot of guys will make changes in their timing table, in their fuel table, then they'll come right back over here in the fuel live settings and they'll pull that same fuel back out. Or same with timing, they'll click on the timing here and it'll be all over the place. They'll have like crazy dips down here, and then they'll have a bunch of other numbers raised up really high. And anything you change here, if you take away timing here and then you go back into your direct access table and you add that timing back, you're doing nothing. You're taking away all the work that you just put in beforehand. If you add 10 degrees in the sliders and take 10 degrees away at 2000 RPMs here, it's basically sitting where it was to start with, so you're fighting yourself. So make one change in one spot. I like to do that in direct access, and always remember that if you make a change in the direct access table, which is this table right here, that you do it with the key on and the engine completely shut off. Do not try to save this information while the engine's running. It can kill your ECU and cause a lot of trouble. Let's see, base tip and adjust. We can use this figure right here to change if you guys switch out your clutch and your flywheel and you end up stalling while you're driving down the street. You're going to want to log a value called TPS delta, which is down here in the bottom left, and it will show you a 0 all the way up to the number 8. And you can see this number right here. 0 is 5, 1 is 11, 2 is 12. The stock figures here are a little different. 0 is 2, 1 is 4 stock. I've had to change these a little bit because I put a lightweight flywheel on, and I was having a little bit of a stuttering, stalling issue when I'd come up to stops or take my foot off the gas and hit the brakes at a red light. The car seemed to want to stall out. This table changes how much fuel is injected when you hit the gas. So if you're in third gear and you're just cruising, then all of a sudden you punch it in third gear, it's going to need a bigger squirt of fuel to keep the car going and not run lean. If you get a lean spot right when you hit the gas pedal down to the floor, that's something you got to look out for. So I think that's kind of everything right here, guys. I've covered a lot of this stuff before, I feel like, but at the same time, some of it needed some more reiteration. Hopefully you guys find this information useful. Make sure that if you're a MAF car, you make a nice cruising data log, you right click and you use your MAF comp adjust combined fuel trim data, and this will change your MAF comp table. These little white dots will be the ones that Ecmlink is suggesting that you use. Nice smooth linear changes, and I think that's it. So with that being said, guys, make sure you go check out tpgdsm.com if you want to pick up some merch. If you want to support the channel further, you can always do a super thanks down below. We have enabled those on the channel. A guy named Pedro sent me a $50 super thanks the other day because he found one of the videos super helpful, and I appreciate that. Every dollar that you guys send to me goes to new recording equipment, parts, tools, a bunch of stuff to just keep this channel moving forward. I'm trying to fund it myself. I'm working a day job. Oh, speaking of which, I picked up another executive chef gig right away after I lost the last one. I was kind of already in talks with the guy who is running the place, but that's going nice and smooth. So thanks to all you guys who wished me, good wishes and had good words to say and all that. Well, I was going through that little frustrating couple of days. Luckily for me, it was only a couple of days, but we're going to cut it off right here. Check out our new merch drop. We have a couple of new designs that came out on tpgdsm.com. And for those of you who are still waiting on some tunes, we're working through the list. I've been helping a couple of you guys right now up in Canada and a couple of you guys out in California. If you have questions, hit me up at todaysprojectguide@gmail.com. And with that, folks, we're going to end it off right there. So hopefully your 2023 is great. Hopefully this year you do something fun, something different, better your life in some way, and just have a great time living. We'll see you right back here for the next one. Y'all take care.